and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Friday Night Live. If you and I have not met before, my name is Kesh, this is Mark and Sean. I only joke. My colleagues are missing today because they are out and about looking for properties. In fact, there was last week or the week before, we were actually in Melbourne, really on the ground, really getting an understanding of what's happening in the Melbourne market. It is really, really interesting stuff, speaking to large land developers and seeing the constant demand coming, especially from owner-occupiers in the marketplace, which is pretty cool. But in today's episode, again, like I said, this is going to be a solo one. As my colleagues are out there a little bit busy for this episode, I've got producer Ryan, my name is Kesh, and we are going to be talking about the 5 big mistakes people make whilst investing in real estate. Now, the idea of this is to give, these are the most common 5 things. We see people make a lot of mistakes, but these are 5 things that are non-negotiable. You cannot take this for granted. Now, if I take your attention to my screen, producer Ryan, have my screen up there nice and ready, and we can go in here and actually go through the slides. Now, these slides were made ad hoc to make sure we give you a lot of information. Now, the first mistake that people make as an investor is not having clear goals. Goals are a very, very important part when it comes to investing. Now, often what we see when I ask people, hey, why are you investing? What do you guys, what are your goals? Why are we even doing this? They'll say, oh, I want 5 properties and I want 10 properties. And that's not the point, right? So when you think about goals, what do you got to consider? What do you really got to consider when you're thinking about goals? What is the end result that we want? What is the end result? There's no such thing as perfect property. All properties have upsides and downsides. So what is the end result? End result being, hey, I want to speed up my mortgage payment, and I'm looking to do that. Or it could be, I want to create wealth. It could be, I want passive income. It could be, paying no tax or very little tax, whatever it is, or it could be a combination of all of these things. What is the end result that you really, really want? Now, I've done a video about how we do goal setting for our clients that work with us, and what sort of framework, thought process matrix that we follow. But essentially, there are 3 things that we focus on, right? The 3 main things that you focus on. The first thing is, what are your fixed costs? What are your lifestyle costs per annum, and what are the luxuries that you really want? So fixed costs being, roof above your head, 3 meals a day, bills. How much money do you need per annum to cover this, right? Lifestyle costs, children, school, car repayments, maybe a little bit of travel, life events, birthdays, anniversaries, gifts, funerals, whatever. Luxuries could be your dream car, dream house, if you will. Could be giving to your favorite charity. Could be, inheritance for your kids, or helping them out with their HECS, or whatever it might be, right? What is the end result you really, really want? And the biggest problem with goal setting that I see people make, and where they go wrong with this, is they're not clear on their end result. And part 2, they don't have a clear picture on their current financial ability. What I mean by that is, when as an individual, when I'm trying to make a decision about something, I go, right, I want, say for example, in this case, you decide you need 10 properties, you need to pay off a $950,000 mortgage, and the reason you need 10 properties is because maybe you want, I don't know, let's just say $400,000 in passive income, or $300,000 in passive income, whatever your goal is, right? This is what you want. You want to help your children with their X debt, or you want to buy your dream car, you want to retire by X age, whatever it is, right? And then I look at my current scenario. What do I earn? Out of the goals that I've set for myself, what do I have so far? And what do I need to do to create a pathway to really get there? So if I want to buy 10 properties, you're not going to go buy 10 in one go unless, you've got the resources to do so, you've got large inheritance, or, I don't know, you can make like $10 million a year and you can go do that, right? For $1 million, you'll probably go and buy $700,000 properties just for tax. But for most people, that isn't realistic. Getting a very clear picture of your current snapshot and understanding what your goals are. And you can't be, look, I come from a school of thought where I really believe people can do anything. Literally, you set your mind to something, you can do anything, right? I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but the reality is someone who earns $60,000 a year, has a $15,000 car loan, has $5,000 in savings, and maybe 2 children, is not going to get here very easily, right? There will be a lot of steps involved. Even before we get to the property part, it would be about increasing their income, paying down their debt, so on and so forth, right? But you could be someone who's on a $350,000 household income. You might already have a mortgage, you might have a few children, and there might be a little bit of a pathway for you to get to, if not 10, maybe even 5 properties, right? So being very clear with your goals is very important. Often what I see people do is, if I had to erase this, often what I see people do is they'll buy a property, and usually it ends up being the owner-occupier. So they'll end up buying a house, which really isn't their forever home, but it is what they can afford to do, and they'll buy a home. And often what they do is they stretch themselves, right? So they will go, their normal budget would have been $850, couldn't really find something, and they go, look, if we add another $200K, because I'll tell you what, I've helped a lot of people find property, and their dream property is usually $200,000 to $500,000 above what they're able to find in the marketplace, and that's human nature, and that's fine. But they stretch themselves so far, which affects their savings, affects their lifestyle, and that's probably sort of sits on their chest and not the right thing for them to do. So if I was to say the number one mistake is not having the right goals. Now, number 2 mistake is in line with buying the wrong property, stretching themselves, not really understanding how the numbers behind real estate work. So again, when we talk about numbers, people go, oh, how much rent will I get, right? How much rent will I get? What will be my growth? My debt repayments. And these are very they're important questions, but they're 0.1% of what you should be looking for. So if you really look at this example here, now this is something that we do with our clients, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing in the interest of time, because producer Ryan wants me to finish this in 15 minutes. I'm trying a new format. I'll try it, producer Ryan, I'll try it, right? But let's just look at this example very quickly. This is a property here for $714,000. I think this was a Victoria example where we were purchasing the land and building the house, or an existing property. I can't remember now. Let me look at the stamp duty and I'll tell you. It was definitely not an existing, it was a construction facility. So when you look at the $714,000, what we got to also look at is, right, how much money do I really need to buy this property? So the first thing we need to know is, what are my purchasing costs, right? So then you break down, say, okay, that's what I'm paying for conveyancing, for a solicitor, for example. And this, guys, this is just very rough numbers here, just for the ease of this example. And I'll say, right, with my conveyancing costs and stamp duty, my total purchasing cost would be about $21,000. Now, beyond that, I need to invest some money. So I'm putting some money into this property, right? So in this example here, we used equity instead of cash. So we're putting in $71,490, which is 10% equity. And then of course, then we've got other costs such as the purchasing cost of $21,000 and loan costs of $19,790. Now, loan costs would be, in this case, is LMI, some application fees, valuation costs, so on and so forth. So the total cost is $714,000 for the property, $21,000 for the purchasing costs that we outlined here, and then $19,000. So altogether, my total investment is $755,000. But realistically, all of this is coming from equity. So this is a bank loan, and this is a bank loan. So I'm paying for both these things through equity. Now, when I'm working off this, now the assumption here on this particular property here, we were working through someone who's got a large mortgage, so we want to prioritize paying off their mortgage. So we were looking at what interest-only repayments would look like. We made an assumption of a 4% interest rate at the time of doing this example. And we went loan, interest-only, interest write-off period, monthly repayments, annual repayments. So we really got a breakdown of that. Rent per week was $450 per week, and vacancy rate in the area is about 2%. So on and so forth. We took out expenses, the agent's commission, letting fees, rates, so on and so forth, insurances. Again, there might be a few less things in this, but this is an example. So from here, we went on to really work out what my cash flow is going to look like. So this property is going to give me $450 per week rent. That is $22,000 per annum. Interest-only repayments are going to be $27,000. Rental expenses are about $3,944. So before tax, pre-tax cash flow would be negative $9,782. But after that, I get depreciation on building, depreciation on fittings. Again, you only get depreciation on fittings and fixtures if you're the primary owner. You were the first person to be on the title of this property and not buying it from someone else. You've constructed it or you've bought it brand new. You're the first owner. Now, loan costs. So whatever LMI you've paid, you can sort of claim it over 5 years. So total deductions in this property was $47,000. Now, we've assumed that this person's income is $200,000. So they're going to get a tax credit back of $11,000. If we offset that with this, we're looking at $1,281 back in their pocket. So if you had just gone and said, right, what is it going to rent for? What is it going to grow for? What are my debt repayments? We've missed a lot of things. Now, I know in growth rates and all of that is, we've been looking at 5, 10, 15, 20%, 6, 7, 8%. But even here from a capital growth rate perspective, we've made a very simple assumption of 6%. That's been the average 30-year performance for this particular pocket, right? So looking at the past, we can then start to see how much equity this property would have made. So I can go, right, first year, so much equity, second year, so much equity, fifth year, so much, 10th year, so much, and 20 years, so much. Again, the real estate market is not linear. You're not going to have 6% per annum growth every single year, year on year, right? Sometimes the market will be flat, you'll see a massive spike, and then you'll see a little bit of a correction, then you'll again see a trough, and then it'll rise again, right? So it follows these patterns, but when you average it out over a long period of time, so maybe it grew here 40%, it corrected here 10%, it grew here 40%, so I can see, okay, 40% up plus 40% up. Let's say here it was 2%, it was flat, plus 2%. That's 82% growth over 20 years, minus 10% of the correction, so 72% over 20 years. I could divide that and then sort of work out what my growth rate was over a period of time. Again, I'm talking about passive investing. The idea of passive investing is I'm not trading real estate. I'm not like buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling. The math behind those sort of deals of renovating and buying and selling and development are very different to passive way of investing where you buy and hold long-term real estate. So this is a big mistake I see people make. So sometimes they'll walk away from deals. Now the idea behind these numbers is very simple. Can I afford to hold this deal? So at an X date in the future, where I don't know, but 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, this property will go up in value, right? Fair enough. The assumption is I'm paying $714,000 for it. Even if it grows at 6% per annum, this property will be worth $2.29 million in 20 years, right? Which isn't very, very crazy. It's pretty conservative. But when this $2.29 million will happen, could be 10, could be 15, could be even 35, for all I know. but am I in a position to be able to hold this property long enough, and is this right for me, right? And that decision has to be based on, what do I need to outlay from my back pocket? Let's say I don't have a tenant for 3 months or 6 months. What does it really look like for me, right? So a lot goes into really understanding numbers. And this property might be great for someone who can afford to hold it, and might be horrible for someone who can't afford to hold it, or is looking for something completely different in their portfolio. Now, another big mistake people make is property selection. So there are three categories of properties we tell people about, and we talk to people about it at JR. The three categories of properties are gold, check, and deleverage. Now, gold properties are more properties that are capital growth and have weaker cash flow. These properties can be used for, recycling equity, buying your next deal, or selling in the future, paying down debt on another property, right? A check property is more cash flow. So let's just say, for example, my gold property was negative $200, and this one is plus $200. So this sort of looks after that. The cons of this is, weaker capital growth, and this could be for various reasons: use of the real estate, type of real estate, so on and so forth, right? And then deleverage is more. So these two come under the passive, buy and hold, and this deleverage comes more into the active. So this is, renovations, subdivisions, knockdown rebuild, small or large scale development, whatever it might be. These are projects that are usually 18 to 24 months. And the idea behind this is not to hold, but is to sell for a profit, or sell a portion of it for profit. Use this to either pay down debt or recycle the money into another deal, or whatever it is, right? Based on what your goals are and what your current circumstances are, and what sort of outcome you're looking for, selecting the right type of property is very, very important. Often, the number one mistake I often see, which I'm going to talk about at the back of this, is the stretching themselves, right? So when we talk about property selection, whether it's gold, whether it's check, whether it's deleverage, going back to the cash flow example that I gave you, people would just unnecessarily stretch themselves so far, whether it's with their owner-occupier, whether it's with an investment property, that they're unable to really move forward, right? So the next mistake we see is complacency. I reckon this is the biggest one. I'll actually move to this camera to talk about this. Complacency is something we see quite often. Now, when I talk about complacency, you get a lot of people who watch YouTube videos or watch a video like this, get really, really excited, talk to their friends about investing or property ownership, and along the way they fall, don't stick to the plan. They often want other people to do things. So for example, often you'll see people who buy maybe one property, their home, maybe another investment property, or become default investors where they bought a property and then they upgraded their home and turned the first one into an investment property, and they just stop, they freeze, and they assume that automatically something magical will happen in the economy where their borrowing capacity will increase, or they'll magically pay down debt, or they don't do anything for years to come with the excuse of being busy. Now, sure, you can be busy at work with your kids, so on and so forth, but wealth creation is a very important part of anyone's life. Like, look, you could be the most loving person in the world, but if you're having money problems, you really can't be the best dad or mom, or be there for your family, or really add value to society, essentially, because money is one of those things that can solve problems. Essentially, if someone needs medical help, you're there and you've got the funds and the resources to give them access to doctors and lawyers, or being able to help your children, or starting your dream business, whatever it might be, right? And complacency is the number one. Even though it's a number 4 on my list, this has been a big major problem, and the people who are most guilty of complacency are people who actually do well in life, which is so crazy. They're really good in their careers. They make a reasonable amount of household income. They've got a reasonable amount of money coming through, and they go, oh, that's right, my bills are being paid, I'm on track to pay my mortgage, making extra repayments. Instead of 30 years, I'll pay it off in 20, whatever it is, till interest rates change, and then now your extra repayments become minimum repayments, let's just say. But this is something that I see really, really stops success. So when I'm working with my clients, or we as a team, we're working with our clients, that's one thing we really tell them, saying, hey, look, I'm only as good as the information you give me and whether you stick to your goals or not. I can show you the direction and I can work with you and help you. But if you're going to become complacent, you're not going to stick to your savings goals or debt reduction goals or property goals, and you're going to be fazed by media and other things, you're not getting there. So the media's job is to sell headlines, which they're doing really well. Sometimes it's in favor of investing, sometimes it's not, whatever it might be. You got to really be sure about making every decision and seeing how this is going to affect your goals and your timeline. So complacency is something that I see is one of the top reasons, and hence it's made the top 5 of why people aren't able to successfully invest or pay off debt or do any of that. Now, coming back to my screen, if you will. The next one is no team. Now, team is a very important part. When it comes to real estate investing, it's not what you know sometimes, it's who you know. So when you talk about a team, to buy a property, to buy this property, there's essentially 2 ways to do that. Do it the amateur way, where you jump on realestate.com or domain, whatever online website you use, and you show up and buy a property. Essentially, you get a pre-approval, and you buy in a suburb, in your neighborhood or family or friend's neighborhood, and you just go about your day, and that's that. Now, there's no right or wrong. This is a very amateur way to do things, especially in the year 2022. And it'll be super amateur, I'm assuming, in the year 2025. There's a lot of work out there. Now, to really successfully buy real estate, these are the people you actually need on your team. The first person you really need on your team is a investment specialist broker. This is, now again, respectfully, there are a lot of finance people out there, a lot of brokers out there, but I often, in my experience, I found not all brokers are made equal, not all accountants are made equal, and these are people who really they understand complex structures, they understand investment needs. We've got some in-house that work with our clients, but they're very, very important, because no matter how great the deal is and how much money they could be for you to potentially make, if you can't get finance in order, you're not going to be able to buy the property. The second person you really need is someone who understands the property market. So an acquisitions team. So again, you got to understand, a real estate agent represents the seller. Their job is to get the most amount of money for the seller. A real estate agent, all the information he's giving you is to get that deal across the line and get you to pay as much money as possible for that deal. Now, an acquisitions team, or a buyer's advocate or buyer's agent, or whatever you want to call it, I wouldn't really even call an acquisition team a buyer's agency, to be honest, are people who have access to the entire market. They might even have access to wholesale deals, and are able to negotiate and find you a deal that aligns with your strategy. Now, the third thing is working with an experienced property investor. So again, the simplest way to become successful is find someone who's done it and just copy them. Follow the plan. Very, very easy. You can either spend 10, 20, 30 years experiencing it yourself, and hindsight will teach you. But the problem is, when you make a mistake in real estate, it's not 5 grand, 10 grand. It could be a couple of $100,000 and completely knock you out of the market. So work with an experienced property investor who can really help you outline your strategy. And a strategy is something that cannot be set in stone, because everyone thinks life is A and we want to be at Z, and that's what it's going to look like. The reality is, this is what it looks like. That's what it really looks like, because things happen, the economy changes, things go up and down, prime ministers change, wars happen, all sorts of stuff happen, right? So a strategy is something where, if required, we can pivot, adapt, whatever happens. If you're in a part somewhere and there's a roadblock, we figure out a way to come around it. Or maybe find a whole different way to go around it, whatever it might be, right? But we need to get to our goal no matter what. And that's something they can do. And that's what I do for work, right? Working with people, helping them really figure out how they can get to their strategy, and then working with an acquisitions team that can actually help them find the right property for their strategy, and not just buying property for property's sake. And then, of course, getting this. The fourth person you need on your team is a fantastic accountant. Plus, I'm just going to add a quantitative surveyor. And for someone who's a passive investor, these are guys who give you your depreciation schedules. Fifth, a very, very good solicitor. Again, if you're someone who is trying to access national real estate, so you need people who are familiar with Queensland law, Victoria law, New South Wales law, South Australia law, Western Australia law, Northern Territory law, wherever you're looking to buy. You need someone who's an experienced solicitor who understands the contracts, who understands how local laws work, how to negotiate things, to make sure everything is kosher, if you will. No one is taking you for a ride. Sixth, you need a fantastic property manager who's going to vet and get you the right clients, are going to help you maintain the property, and also going to help you with those rental increases, so we know that you're getting market rent or above for your dwelling. Now, along the way, if you are someone who's building properties, then you need to be able to get access to land. Sometimes we get access to land exclusively even before it goes to market, getting access to builders. And if you're looking for existing properties, working with an experienced buyer's agent who's got great national relationships with real estate agents and vendors and insurance brokers and financial planners, so you can get access to deals. So it takes a lot of people come together to really build a portfolio. Now, this is very, very important, and people take this very lightly. Going back to our main focus, and we shouldn't take this lightly, as guys, we're making a $500,000, sometimes $2 or $3 million decision, and you're looking to build a project. So if you really think of your project cost, if someone says, hey, I'd love to build a $10 million portfolio, you're going after a $10 million project, right? Think about it. So be very real. If you're someone who earns $200,000 a year, you're trying to go and buy $10 million worth of real estate, pay off your own mortgage, and do various complex things in a busy...
Get that. Could you try?
That's beyond serious pay rate, I'll tell you that. but it's very important that you're working with the right partners that align with your goals, and you have the right team players, and you just don't work with any random solicitor, and you go to your shopping center accountant to give you a $50 tax return, or speak to a real estate agent about, hey, what should I buy? They're going to tell you exactly what they want to sell you, because again, they get paid by the vendors. So if you really want to seriously do this, and this is something you are super passionate about, it's really not hard. It's not rocket science, but it is very important for you to avoid these 5 very, very common mistakes that we spoke about today. Now, speaking of which, I reckon that's a wrap. Producer Ryan, I don't know if I did it in 15 minutes or not, but I had fun. My name is Kesh. Thank you for watching Friday Night Live. These are 5 common mistakes investors make. If you like this format, let us know in the comments below. Happy to do some more videos like this. It's just weird without the others. I miss them. We didn't even do Rapid Robins. Should we do one with you? No. Let's get Producer Ryan on the Rapid Robin. Let's do one. Producer Ryan, if you had to choose you could only have one. You had to stick to one company for a mobile phone for the rest of your life. Would it be Samsung or iPhone?
Let me have a think. Apple.
Yeah,
Apple iPhone.
Apple for life! All you Android lovers, get out of here. Don't even subscribe. Well done. Same. The answer for me is same, mate. Thank you for watching. This is Friday Night Live. My name is Kesh. Until next time. Bye for now.